So, folks, we are going to be talking here with DSA member and organizer, I guess, official liaison between the Riverboat Jack community and the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. We're going to be chatting with Gamergy, one of our mods and local organizer. I'm going to bring her in here. Let's do it. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you a little bit. I'm going to boost your volume a little bit, and that should be better. How about now?
Good. Just checking real quick to make sure my AC unit isn't causing do you hear it in the background at all? I can turn it off.
We hear it a little bit. Maybe turn it off, but if it gets too hot, feel free to turn it back on.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I just went ahead and threw my my face on screen. You don't have to share me if you don't want to.
I'm happy to. Let me throw you up here.
Some chimps already know me.
Yes. Howdy.
Awesome. Hey, Jack. Thanks for having me talk. I actually got up early in the morning, went to work, went to a community event that was focused on, wasn't DSA related, but I ran into a couple of DSA members there. It was essentially a community, like a region of the city that organized about how the police department is bankrupting the city.
I mean, it is.
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation that we are working on, hopefully coming up with a solution with the DSA. So
hell yeah. But yeah, so you've been an organizer with the DSA for a while. How did you get started doing that?
So I got really into municipal internet in like 2016, 2017, and I was inspired by the Bernie campaign and heard tangentially of DSA around then. And I had heard that would be an interesting way to end up getting involved in organizing for a cause such as municipal internet. So I just signed up to be a dues paying member. Went to my first meeting. Not joking when I say my first meeting, DSA meeting I went to, my introductions were heart pounding, nervous, don't know what I'm doing. I'd never done a political thing before. But ended up being all right. And now, according to some people I know, I got what the kids call the Riz. So
I mean, you are very active within DSA. You made a name for yourself in multiple states now. And I guess what is your pitch? Why DSA? There are other political parties out there. There we go. There are other political parties like the Working Families Party, for example, or you'll hear people throw out other organizing branches that are ostensibly socialist or communist even. But why DSA?
Why DSA? It's a little bit if I could go into this a little bit of details.
Yeah.
It's mostly two modes. One, it's all volunteer organization, and there's no ideological hard lines. You can't be a hardcore Zionist who's we're an anti-Zionist organization. We passed that as a resolution at I think the 2025 DSA convention, maybe in 23. But if you're a socialist of any flavor, if you're willing to do the work to make a better socialist society in the United States and in the world, you're welcome to pay dues or sign the dues waiver and just join DSA and start doing stuff. You're not beholden to certain work standards or ethical, work standards or guidelines, you have to be at every meeting all the time. There are sometimes stipulations if you're going to be in leadership of your local chapter or national, but those are stipulated in your chapters or nationals, what are called bylaws. Shouldn't do air quotes. Bylaws are legally binding, but they're called bylaws, and they're basically kind of like a law book. It's like the legal framework of a chapter. Most chapters have their own local formation as like a 501c4, which is a nonprofit for political purposes. Like, I forget what the full details are, but also like DSA doesn't have what's known as democratic centralism. And this is where like democratic centralism is where when you're in the room with the meeting with your group and you make decisions, once the decision's been made and voted on, that is the opinion of it, and you can't like go out and like blast people on social media or essentially dissent from the decision made by the party. DSA is not that. We are not democratic centralists. So like if you are, it leaves room for dissent in DSA. So like if you're coming forward with causes or concerns, there's always like a pathway to hear them heard and resolved. And I have stories for days and days and days of this and that. There's stuff ongoing that I am relatively close connected to that's blowing up, that a couple chimps I have confided in my latest ongoing things. But the important thing is everyone's there like to make a better world, and it's basic short phrase pitch. We're a big tent socialist organization. We're not going to adhere you to a certain set of ideology or at all. Like,
yeah,
I don't really read theory.
right.
I know theory, but I don't read it.
And so that kind of has like a like both a positive and a negative side to it, right? So there will often be like, you know, liberals will talk to me about, you know, DSA, and they're like, oh, but you know, I heard DSA believes blank, or DSA did blank, and I'm always like, okay, but where did they do that though? Because DSA is very geographically spread out, and each chapter is independent, more or less, of the rest. Like there's still like the DSA National that kind of binds a lot of those disparate groups together to some extent, but like there's not really a block of coherence like the Democratic Party has. And what is your view on that?
First, I hope the air is off and good now. Hope that's good. I was worried that my air filter was causing issues, but with the ideological differences, it's like it's been a thing as long as I've been in DSA, where one chapter disagree with another chapter is saying or doing, and there have been people who wanted to recall city councilors from other chapters, and often things get told through games of telephone, and people don't know the full picture and make assumptions based on their ideological framework. But also sometimes the things that you don't know, you should be assuming worse. So like I've had people be like, what the heck is going on in so and so, and like I heard there was like this, but I mean that person can't be that. I'm like, no, that is that bad. But then there's other parts like, what the heck are they talking about? That's absolutely not what happened. So I would encourage, like, this is kind of like where the point of DSA chapters, 90% of the work happens in your chapter, comes into play. It's as much as it's essentially like a microcosm of American organizing, where it's like every chapter is its own little state and has governors or has senators that go to the delegates to the Congress, or known as the National DSA Convention. I'm really like mixing up a lot of things, but it's just a vague idea of where you can get how DSA is decentralized. DSA is a lot more decentralized than that, actually. The national formation of DSA that like has what's called the National Political Committee, or the NPC, that's elected every 2 years at the convention. They, despite switching ideological makeups quite often, they have always followed the principle of let chapters sort things out for the most part. Most of the time that works out good, so that when chapter versus chapter beef happens, it's not like it doesn't cause into a big infighting where it kind of explodes into a bunch of other issues. Sometimes there are issues where national could step up, but also like historically national DSA has been very thin on the effort on the work they do. And I could write a whole book on where national should go with things and what work and what they could do to improve. But I will say national DSA does like the best job it can. I don't like, even though I often disagree with some of their positions or whatnot, like I trust them.
So what, because again, this conversation is kind of for people who have they're low information on DSA. So if each kind of group of DSAers is kind of like a state, the DSA convention and the national group, what do they do if the component parts, those kind of state level or regional level DSA groups are doing a lot of like the on the ground work? What does national do? What does national bring here?
So national has paid staff for each region of the country. I can't remember the number of staff. They're called field organizers. Basically, there's a certain amount of staff that National DSA has paid on the payroll for National DSA that is specifically made to help your chapter do organizing and answer all the questions you need. These are people who have a lot of experience in political organizing and can help you get involved and get stuff started up and ran. Like maybe they don't know what to do, but they can get you in contact. Like maybe not specifically with like your city council or whatever, but they can give you modes of organizing to how you can get your chapter up on the ground running, how to get stuff done. I think they're like a field organizer because it covers like 5 to 7 states, and they're on staff. So like I've known field organizer that I cover because the state I used to live in also covers Minnesota now. So like I've known him for years and very useful. These are people who like are there to help, like if you're starting a new chapter, get it off the ground running. And I always like to say, like specifically with the National DSA staff, they are paid to help you utilize their work. Like this is something that is often not tapped into is National DSA's work. There's a staffer who does solely electoral organizing work. Milo is his name, and he will train you on how to run a strong campaign, how to we have pre-made complex Google sheets and documents that give you a template of how to work off things and give you the step-by-step 100 level class, 3 100 level classes and 3 200 level classes on how you can get a campaign off the ground running and how to win elections. And I went to the 200 level organizing stuff and it was very useful. This is knowledge that is often gate kept behind institutional lobbyist groups who withhold a lot of information. Another thing that National DSA helps with is they have trainings like DSAUSA.org/trainings. If your chapter needs help learning how to do something, if your committee or working group in your chapter wants to learn how to be an effective door knocker, how to organize with various coalition work organizations, how to do grassroots fundraising like a badass. These are trainings that National DSA will schedule with you and get you an hour or two training and lots of good information. And we've requested a couple for our local chapter here, and we've found it very useful. And This is what National DSA, this is what you're paying your dues for. You're paying your dues for these people to give you training to be good organizers. And I can't think of a better bang for your buck than like $5 to $10 a month to learn an organizing skills that you would have to go to like either some very expensive organizer school, be in a union for 10 years so that people let you move up and talk and get to learn things, which labor organizing is just one sector of organizing. There's other forms.
Mm-hmm.
Or you happen to know like your uncle or your grandpa who was a 30-year organizer who can tell you all of it. This is institutional knowledge that DSA has that can train you on how to be a good organizer. And I can say the more I've leaned on National DSA's training and training, like learning from my comrades in DSA on like asking questions and getting feedback, like knowing who to talk to and whatnot, that is like how organizations really grow and take power.
So because I know that there are going to be people who are like, well, why not just join the Democratic Party itself? Why organize in DSA when the DSA, part of what it's doing is seeking to organize, like to influence Democratic Party politics as well?
So DSA is, funny you say that. I've had conversations with Dragonfly about how the Dems are ran. I have gotten some information on how the Dems are funded, and let me tell you, they are not member funded. They are desperately clinging on to. I would be scared what would happen to the Dems, or many would be excited if they happen to like really drop their big donor base. It's like the DNC's already lost a lot of money from big donors, and they don't have grassroots funding.
No,
like they don't. Like DSA is the largest member-funded, member-ran organization in the country. Not just socialist, but it's probably like your money is going to the most optimal place in DSA. I cannot imagine ever like getting more value in organizing and building power than I do with my dues every month.
Well, is it worth it? Because I've often heard that it's worth it to join the local Democrats and the local DSA so that you can kind of like, if you have the time and capacity, build up power both inside the Democratic Party to get priorities done, and also organize with folks that are, outside of the Democratic establishment. Is that worth pursuing, or do you think that that's kind of like a, too much to ask of folks?
So it's kind of like, how do I put it? There's people who do that, and it often is a matter of what you can do your capacity for. DSA covers a lot more than simply like running elections and winning elections or building a platform. Like DSA does organizing on like pressure campaigns to push politicians who aren't DSA candidates to go to better positions. DSA does like plans, organizes or helps organize protests. We do coalition work and various coalitions to help push our agendas we agree on through. In the type of organizing that Democrats are more like, let's just win an election and then go from there. And that's not power building.
Yeah.
I will also like to say, in DSA, you will have a much friendlier time with DSAers than you will with the Dems. Mileage may vary depending on your local Dems. I have heard the stories. I have seen the posts. I know what it's like when you organize in your Dems. And I guess I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm saying you definitely want that outside pressure you definitely want that outside pressure to go with it. And at least like the internal party structures for the Dems, it's very insulated and hard to break in. DSA is a member-led organization. It's one person, one vote. It's like there's a lot more pathways to mobilize and do things in. Like I say in the write-up that I do, that I share with a lot of people looking out to start organizing a DSA, you can just start a working group or committee in your chapter with like 4 or 5 people, depending on what your bylaws say. And if you do that, and you like go and like say, hey, let's start this, let's get that for vote to approve or whatever, you can just start doing issues on that and do organizing and get trained through DSA. And also, like, there are formations of the Dems that, like, different sections of Dems, like, for instance, the DFL, there's the Senior Caucus, there's the Stonewall DFL. And there are formations that you can find that are more socialist friendly, more left friendly, that you can also do stuff in and help organize for better positions in your Dems. But in the end, it's not member funded. And there could be an order called from up high that comes specifically from a donor who tells the people at the top and quash that dissent coming from the bottom. It's not like you don't do that as easy in DSA. DSA is all about the mass organizing.
Yeah. So like it's kind of like, you know who you're working for when you're organizing in DSA. You're not quite sure who anyone's working for when you're going with the Dems. And it seems like they cover a lot more ground. The DSA covers a lot more ground. I know they're a lot more social as well. Like DSA often has built into it a lot more socializing, a lot more like, hey, we're going to hang out without necessarily like political strings attached to it. And so it's almost kind of like DSA's building organically third spaces for folks, which is why the common conception, I think, is like, oh, it's just a bunch of people hanging out. It's not serious about politics, which I think is misleading. You know, I think the camaraderie is real and helps build the political movement. Is that right?
Yeah, and like putting the social in socialism is what I always say. That's what I always say. Like this, I'll say that quite often. Like, you got to put the social in socialism. You got to be social. You got to go to the socials. You got to hang out with people that you know. And like some of the better organizing conversations I've had was just us, like, not in a meeting or a specifically fundraised dinner, but just hanging out at the park or hanging out like at the picnic or chilling, getting pizza together as a group. Like, these are where a lot of conversations end up being had that lead to places you may not know. Like, meetings are very specific and have agendas. And the reason I say to go to in-person to meetings, if you can, very specifically try to go in person, just because once the meeting is adjourned, if you're on virtual call and it gets turned off, that's it. If you're in person, after the meeting's over, you can just chill and chat with all your comrades in DSA and hang out and like ask all the questions you want and get to know them more and feel more comfortable with yourself and with them. Like, I know meeting with a bunch of new people can be socially anxious for people, but like, it's seriously like, this is how I was able to help battle through social anxiety over the years, was going by 2 DSA meetings and speaking up more and becoming more skilled in politics and like charisma and stuff. And I guess I just like to also mention another one of my sayings is 90% of organizing is 2 things. It's talking to people and showing up to things. If you can talk to people all right and you can show up to things like on time, at least not too late, then you can do organizing. And if you can't talk to people yet, but you can show up, you can learn to talk to people.
It's true.
And most people are more friendly than you think. I know we're like often looking at the world through the scary news view of the internet, and some news that you covered, Jack, but most people, especially like in DSA, or they're going to be organizing with, are like really chill and understanding. Like, be good faith with them, and they'll be good faith with you.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where I think that there is a mindset some people get into when it comes to organizing or just even the basic act of socializing, where they're just like, "Oh, I'm just not good at it. I can't do it. I'm too anxious, etc., etc., etc." But like you mentioned that it's a skill. Like it's a skill that when you practice it, you do get better at it. And so when you go and socialize, that's a chance for you to practice. And it's something I've talked about on the show just as a general piece of life advice. But if you're going to get involved in organizing, practicing your ability to talk with other people and socialize and like relate to other people is a core skill. And I did want to ask you a bit because I wanted to ask you about your take on, the mainstream media is kind of starting to develop a little bit of like DSA is coming. The Democratic Socialists, they're coming. It's almost like if not a red scare, like a light red scare, but about Democratic Socialists. And I was wondering what your take is on that. Like, what do you view it as? Like, DSA is the one that's coming in? Do you view DSA as part of a wider Democratic Socialist movement? Like, what's your view, just as an organizer?
So I think this is the culmination of multiple things that's been happening over the past 10, maybe arguably 15, 20 years. One, older generations of the neoliberal Clintonite era, they are aging out into obscurity. People who voted for them, loved them, are quite literally dying off, or elderly and one-to-one to imagine what their grandkids' future is going to be looking like. Second is DSA was mostly not on the radar until 2016. We've had growing pains. We have grown larger, and I would also say we've gotten a lot more serious in contending with power. We've run stronger campaigns. There's lessons learned here, lessons learned there. Chapters grow. They have their own growing pains. Every chapter will have growing pains. That's why it's very important to stick it out and like get through it and keep going and just organize through it. Follow the processes that you need to get to your goals through that. But also DSA is like the largest socialist organization in the country ever now. But we do work like in coalition. We candidates, I don't think it's very specifically Zohar Mamdani. I don't think it's very specifically NYC DSA. I think it's a democratic socialist movement that has found itself at home in DSA. And I think it's also because it's the low barrier to entry. We're not giving you a bunch of homework to qualify to be a member. And also, I have seen a lot of people come into DSA who said, I was with the Dems for a while, and they suck and ran me out because I had good ideas and they didn't want to hear them. and DSA is like, welcome, and they come in and organize in DSA, and they start doing electoral work or other sort of work and organize and get wins. I think it's mostly a failure of the Dems that has in part led to this, but also there's an entire generation of people who have not had power and are finally taking that power, and they see a better mode of politics than what the Clintonites and neoliberals have given us.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like you mentioned, like DSA is now the biggest socialist group that's ever existed in America, which is very impressive. And I guess I know other people have been wondering this. To what degree does DSA collaborate with other other groups. Like I know Working Families Party is often aligned with a DSA in some spaces, but I hear questions about potentially organizing with like CPUSA or there. What's that other the
RCA,
RCA? There's another one too, like
PSL,
DSL. Yeah,
PSL.
PSL. Yes, sorry.
So I would like to just like reiterate that DSA is not democratic centralists, and I know it gets messy when people call each other out on social media and you see like petty infighting on the internet, but most of the time that amounts to no real world consequences. I just think that DSA has like that mode of low barrier to entry, quick barrier to get up untrained on stuff through national DSA, and also like you're free to voice as a like in the minority of opinion. You're free to have that voice and not be shut down. And I also just like wanted to mention I have all night. I have time for questions for anyone who wants to ask them later.
Absolutely. What do you say? Because I know that, for example, there's a lot of pearl clutching in the mainstream media about maybe there are some voices within DSA that should be shut down because maybe their ideas are like too extreme or dangerous. What do you think about that?
I think the more extreme thing, what they're mad about, like just straight up basic example, people get mad that we're an anti-Zionist organization. Like for a while, one of our like critiques that people had with us was like our position on Israel Palestine, and like our position on that is quite mainstream among Democratic voters now. The Overton window shifts and can shift fast. The problem is the Democratic Party for so long has shifted to where Republicans and conservatives and big money people want to operate and move. They just follow the winds because they think they can get easy money and win the mysterious moderate Republican voter that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I will say, like, how I put it, you can read a lot of scary things about DSA if you're like a normie lib, but then you talk to DSA people and like, yeah, I support that, but like, I'm like your neighbor who goes to like the neighborhood community meetings and I know you. Like, the ideas are scary in a vacuum to some people. I don't think any of them are really particularly scary. Most of our positions, if not all of them, are fairly mainstream, especially among Democratic voters. And that's kind of the thing that drives me a little, that should drive people crazy, is like, they don't know who their voters are. They don't know who their voters are because they're so insular. Like, this goes back to the point where I said earlier, they're so insular that they don't know who their voters are. And their voters are with DSA. Like, I go back to the poll that I shared in your Discord a month or two ago. DSA is more popular amongst Democratic voters than the Democratic Party is amongst Democratic voters.
It's true.
And I think that they really try to play it up a lot in what we are, but people are looking to a new sort of politics and not also, I think, like, honestly, Trump being the existence of establishment conservative type politics has just soured any of the former moderates into becoming like liberals or leftists.
Yeah, I mean it's what is it? Evelyn Normie Lib?
Evelyn Normie Lib.
Yeah.
And like literally like I'll going back to the post I like to share of like some middle-aged woman in her 40s or 50s at like a No Kings protest. Caitlin Bennett is like talking to her. Like, this is just like a woman who like oh, actually, better example. So I saw a post on Blue Sky of like a very typical normie, a very normie DFL volunteer. Mm-hmm. She said, "I knocked doors constantly for Clinton in 2016. And I can't say what she said on Blue Sky about ICE. I can't say it on your stream.
Yeah.
I won't say it, but that's where that's Evelyn Normie Lib is very real.
Yeah, no, like it's genuinely crazy. I don't think the Democratic Party at large truly understands how angry people are right now and how truly dissatisfied they are.
It's actually kind of a curveball, because like you'll be like in a DSA group or like a Discord, and like we have to like be very specific about not fed posting. You go to like the local like bridge club with the grandmas, and you'll hear the most wild stuff you would get banned on all social media for, just like out of pocket randomly about what, like, you say, hey grandma, what do you think about ICE? And like, let me tell you,
back in my day, it is interesting, because also what is interesting to me is that oftentimes when mainstream media tries to like do a report on DSA or something, like they will focus on kind of those minority ideological voices within DSA that say shocking things, like, you know, kind of like the wing of the DSA that might be considered like tanky or tanky adjacent. They'll be like, oh, you should be scared of them, and I'm like, you need to go to like your local nursing home and go to the liberal nursing home with the poker game, because like they're saying things that would genuinely like make a tanky stop short. It's
because and I also think like it took a while to get to this place. Like even in 2020, like the last 6 years ago, which isn't that long in the grand scheme of politics. Even in 2020, the big majority of voters identified as moderate, and like I can't remember the actual numbers, but I think it was like as many voters identified as liberal as identified as conservative, or I think the lowest of moderate, liberal, and conservative, the lowest percentage was liberal, I think, in 2016 and maybe even in 2020. And now it's like 60 or 65% identify as like the liberal, like the left option, as for Democratic voters. And I also think I think people are really mad for some of the reasons I've already mentioned, but also I think like one thing that is really like Trump centers all the worst of America that is still America, but all the worst of America. Trump embodies all of it. And the people that embody the best of America want to not be that. And right now, the only people who have been pushing back against Trump is DSA and progressive candidates. And mostly because the liberals, or like, you know, I would classify them as like neoliberals, because they're basically conservatives masquerading as moderates, like the Ezra Kleins and whatever, abundance libs. You go out and like look at, like, I followed someone who was snooping in at their conference. Like, they are just conservatives, and they agree with Trump on like most things because the money agrees with Trump on most things. And I think that isn't talked about enough, how much just a couple rich billionaire assholes are buying opinions, and opinions from Democrats too. Like, this is the only, I imagine that this is the only reason Democrats are going anti-trans, because there is a lot of money behind anti-trans politics. That, like, Aaron Reed reported, one of the detransition grifters who was getting paid like $200,000 a year from one of the organizations that bankrolls her.
Yeah.
$200,000 to do what? To go to a couple speeches at city councils and state houses a year. A couple.
Yeah.
And that's one organization that's paying her. Like, there's a lot of money behind this. The difference is we have the people and we have the arguments. They just have the money in soulless. Like, also, I think like that's honestly another For some back history, I grew up in a very Catholic family. Most of the wokeness in my rhetoric and ideological frameworks are built on a foundation of understanding. My priest always talked about how rich people like don't seek salvation and whatnot, because they're selfish and aren't helping other people with their wealth. There is an understanding with the greater like Americans, like the majority of them, are starting to understand that there's at least like, if not a religious undertone, like a spiritual, like you're selling your, like the old trope of selling yourself soul to the devil. Like this is what it feels like to sell yourself to Trump. It's like selling yourself to the devil. Like this is just metaphors and everything. But like I think there's a specific American undertone of bowing to Trump and kissing the ring of Trump is like a betrayal of who you should feel as an American who believes in the multicultural project that we proclaim to be for.
And I think that a lot of people, and this is just from, brief insights I've had with folks who are in positions of political power, but it is, I think, shocking how cheaply some politicians sell themselves. Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, it takes a huge amount of money to buy a politician. And it really doesn't. It like they will like sell for like, if you give them like $5,000, a lot of them will just be like, yeah, I'll meet with you personally for an hour. And billionaires obviously have a lot of $5,000 that they can throw around to different political people and different political races. And so they get a lot more time than your average Joes. And if they get it in their heads that like, oh, well, I'm a billionaire and I just don't like, my trans daughter, they will then throw, $200 million, $300 million, $500 million around like it's nothing, just because they've gotten it into their head that like, hey, maybe we should try passing some anti-trans laws. And when you have that amount of money like flowing into politics, it buys a lot of politicians on both sides. Like neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are really immune from this, which is one of the reasons why I've always seen DSA as a particularly useful organization, because it is a base of power that is not able to be touched by that money, because of its decentralized nature. Like you can't really buy, the kind of political power that you would need within DSA, as opposed with politicians. You don't have to buy off necessarily all the voters in order to get something passed. You just have to buy off one politician and then buy some ad space.
Yeah, and how I put it, I've come to understand a little bit deeper knowledge of how people like win elections and whatnot. Getting into a little bit of like the nitty gritty power structures things, everyone forms their coalition in some way. I think Trump was unique in the reason Trump was able to bring in new people who hadn't like voted before, or like were maybe Democrats in the past who just became MAGA, was like a little bit of a two-parter. One parter was straight up like Nazis and like fascists who thought Republicans were too light in the past. There's a not Frontline. I think Vice did a documentary on neo-Nazis, a neo-Nazi group. This was years ago, but like they interviewed like a founder of like some neo-Nazi party in the 80s, and he said like at the end of the documentary, like he said, "I've never believed in politicians until Trump." Also, the other part that's not so like serious about it, but also like Trump really has collectivized an entire group of people who all have a shared grievance. There's a reason I call the Republican Party now the party of divorced dads, estranged parents, and I forget what the other one is. But like These are people who felt they've been wronged by like their woke kid or their wife or husband who left them. And like Trump always says, they're coming to meet. They're coming to get you because but I'm the only thing standing in their way. And
Yeah,
Trump's got like the negative riz about it. Like it's I call MAGA a collective cult of shared grievances.
yeah, it's the political party of your drunk uncle on Thanksgiving or your drunk aunt on Thanksgiving who's just like, I'm telling it like it is. And it's worth remembering that there are a whole lot more people in your family than just your drunk uncle. And if you guys all get together, you can, in fact, be more powerful than one drunk guy at Thanksgiving. I believe in America.
Yeah, and like that's another thing is like I've even seen this. I've seen this in like I don't want to call them institution. I say them mild conflicts internally in DSA, where a small faction of people are very loud and bombacious about it, and then when the vote comes up, they don't have the votes and they fail. And I think that's something we always have to remember as organizers. Is there, and this is unfortunately stealing a quote from Reagan, silent majority.
Yeah.
Because it's true. When someone is loud and saying their opinion, like this is kind of how like tankies get more of a say in DSA or like get more heard than what they actually represent in DSA, is because you'll hear people speak bravely and boldly about issue. But is that opinion held by the majority of people there? Like, I think that's something that we have on our side, not just in DSA with the people who want to do the good work and not get caught up in internal fighting. Like, I don't think even like, I think like over 90%, over 95%. I have not I've run into maybe a very, very small handful that I can maybe count on my one hand, who have like actually been like problematic DSA people. And I've met hundreds and hundreds. But as for Americans, yeah, like go to your family dinner, like think about the last drunken uncle who ranted about like their wife leaving them or like being called racist for like saying something racially offensive at the grocery store or something. Contrast that with thinking how many of your relatives just were quiet and didn't want to say anything. That happens more than you like. Not more than you like. That happens more than you think it would happen in everything. And that's because like I do have a general good faith. Like I don't have experience talking to many people in other countries, but like I have a good opinion of the median American as much as the median American who is propped up in our politics is often not the median American.
Yeah. So for folks who have never been to a DSA meeting before, but who have been thinking about it, who've been wondering about it, but it's like a scary prospect, can you walk folks through the process of what is the going to your first meeting? What does it look like?
So one, I would say try to show up a few minutes early, not too early. You want to make sure the building you're meeting at is open. And since Twin Cities DSA's general meetings, we say when the doors open. Most chapters I don't think do that, but show up a couple minutes early. Try to talk to some people, introduce yourself. General body meetings don't typically, even in larger chapters, go have everyone introduce themselves because there's so many people there. But if they do introductions, we usually do name, pronouns, some icebreaker like what is your favorite flavor ice cream, or like what city council district do you live in, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like things like that. And like if that's all you're doing and you're not speaking up in the meeting and just want to listen in, that's fine. We follow a thing that's called Robert's Rules of Order. Your mileage may vary depending on chapter how closely they follow the procedure, but you should follow it.
I do want to say on that point, there is a Dungeons and Dragons based game designed to teach you Robert's Rules of Order. I forget exactly what it's called.
It's
But
called Rules. It's called Rules and Roberts, and I can literally bring up the link. If you Google Rules and Roberts, it'll be like the first result on the itch.io space. And
yeah,
it's
there
free
we
to
go.
download. But like meetings always have like a planned agenda that are usually planned in some format before by like the general meeting planning committee, or sometimes it's like an open discussion. And there'll be a facilitator of the meeting who goes down the agenda and like speaks on things. What we do is we do a thing called progressive stack or stack. It's where in virtual, if you're like on Zoom, you can type the word stack in chat and wait to be called on to speak on an issue that's ongoing, like one of the agenda items that's being talked about. Or raise your hand and they'll call on you when they're ready. I've not had a couple things you should know about being on Stack to be cordial, because we're all respecting each other's time by being there and not going over our time. You want to speak it to the thing called wait, why am I talking? You want to make sure that you're not repeating a bunch of info unless you're saying I echo that, but and then you say something else that to add to the conversation. And you want to make sure you know why you're speaking and not just speaking to speak. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't say give your opinion, because it's good to have discourse in your chapter's conversation. But that's to say you don't want to keep repeating the same things and going in a circle, because I've been in meetings like that, and let me tell you, people don't want to come back to meetings after they've been at one of those.
True.
But like after that, like this is why, again, going back to what I said, go in person, because after the meeting is adjourned, hang out, talk to people. Someone say something interesting, talk to them. Speak to the facilitator or someone who introduced themselves as the leader of a working group or committee that you're interested in. Say, I want to get interested on XYZ issue. How can I get plugged in? And they will help direct you. Usually the facilitator is a chapter leader of some sort, or at least knows enough about the chapter's ongoings to point you to who to talk to. But like, you're not going to have those conversations if you're not going in person. I understand people want to maintain distance, either like they can't get to a meeting on time, they're busy, they live an hour away from the meeting space and can't make it. That's fine. However, if there's a social going on the calendar, you should go to that. Schedule time for that. I have a calendar on my phone that I follow religiously. That is the only thing that keeps me on track of doing things, and I do a heck of a lot. I mean, like literally just said I came in from work to a organizing event to learn about how the Minneapolis police are screwing over the city's budget. And then I came here and was late because and I had to grab fast food on the way to the things. So like, yeah, I like,
you do a
my
lot.
calendar keeps me in case for that. But like, you want to be able to go to these socials, have the conversations you need with people. And it's all about like, if you mess up and someone tells you, hey, that wasn't cool that you said, just be like, okay, I'm sorry. I'll work on it or do better. And do better. Yeah. I mean, like we're people, we make honest mistakes. And as long as you're when it comes to critiquing other people's takes, opinions, positions, we do have in our community guidelines, always assume they're coming from a good faith position. Like if someone's saying, I don't support that, and this is why. You don't want to say, I think you don't support that issue because you are like, you work with that person and you just don't want to support it because they don't support it. Like you want to assume that what they're saying is what they're saying, because it's like 99.99% of the time they're like being honest. Like this is how you organize. Like people come in with differences of opinions. You just want to come with the understanding that people are going to disagree, but they're going to disagree and be cordial about it and not like name call.
Yeah.
I've seen name calling. It's not taking well. Name calling will earn you like a mark of Cain and get like marked by like, oh, like people are going to remember you if you're being in bad faith critiques. Like I think even though most people don't like fully made like have read the community guidelines or anything, we all understand them because we're all people.
Yeah. And it is one of those things where like I know that there are some people who haven't developed their social skills and are a bit clunky when they deliver, what they believe and interact in meetings and are in the process of developing those skills. But like I do think it is important to reiterate that you should be treating everyone in good faith and with kindness, because genuinely this is about building not just a political movement, but a community. And when you're in community with other people, sometimes people will rub one another the wrong way. That's pretty natural. But being able to approach those differences with kindness goes a long way to winning people over. Because also, the people who are showing up aren't there to make a quick buck. They're there because they care about, the local area and want to make it better. And so I think that there are some people who approach joining DSA like they are about to go into like a street fight or something, and that's not what it's like at all.
No, like this comes to my this comes to my nonstop growing hatred of terminal online brain. I'm very online. However, that said, my organizing does not happen online because there is like a specific mindset of like how you organize in the real world to make a real change is not how you get people to like you online. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you want to like politics in its nature is about relationship building. Like we can all say like, oh, so and so is only supporting issue because they give them a lot of money or because of this. People end up switching to other positions because they have relationships with people. Sometimes that relationship is because they got like a bad guy who gets them donations and will support said issues. However, that said, I do want to put it at there are going to be politicians who take positions that surprise you when you talk to them. Like, I just want to give like an example. The politician that you see in the headlines on some position or said one cherry pick quote is probably not the politician you will talk to one-on-one. And maybe that politician is just BSing you, but especially the more local you get, the more serious, like one-on-one, like they'll listen to you and take your opinion seriously. And also like, I think that is one thing that I always try to encourage people like to door knock for candidates. Like there's a reason I bring up door knocking to like the queer organizers in the Twin Cities DSA. I'm like, look, I know we're very often let down by what elected officials are doing to the trans and queer community.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're door knocking with them and talking to their candidates and talking to their staff and talking to the people they're going to be bringing to City Hall or State House and their staff, you're going to be having conversations and building connections and hopefully getting contact information and staying in contact with them so that you can talk to them and make sure that they know that person door knocked with me and I got to stick up for that person who told me that story about them. Like when you're walking in between doors, you're having conversations with the person you're paired canvassing with. You're going to be telling them about your story and like what issues you care about. Like this is how you even like develop pitches at door knocks. Like I've brought in positions to people who I've helped run for office. They're like, yeah, I took the list of ideas you had for our chapter and just like put it as like a platform. Like what? Okay, thank you. But I mean, but yeah, like you'd be shocked how you'd also be shocked how certain politicians who have certain reputations are hearsay and not accurate. Politicians who say they're well liked and they're progressive and no one wants to go after them.
Yeah.
Oh no, like you go and run a candidate and you'll have conversations and you'll hear things. Yeah, seen it happen.
Well, and
I don't have time to go into details of the first campaign I ran, but oh yeah, I've seen where perceived reputation among the hearsay and amongst the citizens of the area conflicts with what people really think of him.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because you mentioned, when you're doing door knocking and, socializing with folks, door knocking either within DSA or door knocking alongside candidates in the local Democratic Party, like that's leveraging another kind of power. And I think it's often a very undervalued type of power when it comes to politics, but like genuinely, especially when you're talking local level politics, that kind of social interaction and connection does sometimes shift people, is sometimes an important component of where they stand on different political issues. And being out there and being visible and being vocal helps to build that power, especially if you can do it in like a kind and friendly way, develop some of that DSA riz,
Yeah, people don't like to be yelled at the internet. Yelling at a politician online is not going to get you anywhere. Ratioing may get you the numbers on the algorithm, but it's not going to change their mind. I think there is a place in internet organizing. I think the place in that is different than what most people think. It's like building followings and connecting. What you want to do in internet organizing at all, if you're doing it, is you want to know who locally in your district is following who for their news and updates. Example, your city, your district, likely, especially like your city, if you're in a bigger city or even like a district, will have neighborhood associations, organizations, podcasts, literally there's podcasters in like literally like just Minneapolis that cover hyper local stuff, and people who post clips. Like they're citizen journalists who have larger followings than you would imagine based on like. Also, here's another thing that I think really needs to get through everyone's head. People who have large numbers of follows, what won't matter if those followers aren't in the district that you're running in. So, example, local podcaster in Minneapolis, Wedge Live, may have like a couple thousand followers on Blue Sky. Like, well, why would I go to them instead of I could go to some streamer with 50,000 follows on Blue Sky or whatever? I'm like, okay, but how many of the followers on the bigger platform can vote for me?
Yeah.
Versus how many followers on the smaller platform can vote for me? That's the issue that Texas Democrats have been running into for 20 years. They get all these donations and all this support from people outside of Texas, but they don't get the Texas support. And I think Tallarico is changing that, so I'm hopeful. Yeah. However, that said, that is why Texas Democrats keep getting all this money raised and all this publicity, but never amounts to winning.
I think you're 100% correct there. And we have a couple questions from the audience here.
I got all night, so ask away.
Yeah, Superjet Guy asks, how is DSA going to navigate the political question these few years leading up to 2028 on the endorsement of AOC and balancing the interests of the independence of the DSA movement without getting co-opted by the state when/if AOC were president?
That's the $1 million question, and Super Jet Guy and I talk sometimes about DSA stuff. He's very smart with this, and he's very in the know of national DSA stuff, maybe even more than I am. But it's going to be very messy, and it's already gotten messy. And right now, if you want to have the influence on what the process looks like with an AOC endorsement, right now, I guess you need to be involved with your chapter and be having conversations with your chapter on what that's going to look like. Because the National Political Committee right now is in the last meeting was very, very not. it was a bit of a mess. Caucuses disagreeing, people feeling upset. There are people being very rude. I'm not going to attack anyone because I feel everyone's coming at it with their own perspective. I will say there is a justified worry that DSA will just be AOC's campaign. That's all it's going to end up being for like 2028. I think DSA has always been more than that and will continue to be more than that. And that's why I think you need to get involved now and organize your chapter now so that you have the foundations built to withstand just dealing with the ups of an AOC run and then the fall offs when she's not running.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened with Bernie's first two campaigns. We saw an increase in membership when Bernie ran. Then when Biden won, went down until Trump won again, and then went up.
Yep.
We have built a much more sustainable model of organizing lately that I think has weathered the storm in a way that the big drop off of members in the past caused harm with. Also, like, it just comes back to what I said earlier in the interview, how we're much more serious and much more with like a foundational practice of organizing. We have more experience in how to do serious on the ground organizing, mass organizing. I don't know what the endorsement is going to look like for AOC. I think it's going to be messy.
Oh, it's almost certainly going to be messy.
It's already messy. I'm worried it's going to get more messy. However, it's where the Shimps caucus comes into handy, Jack. So, if you're in DSA, you need to start getting involved with your chapter now. Because starting December this year, January next year, they are going to, your chapter, very likely is going to be picking out delegates to go to the National 2027 DSA convention in Chicago. If you want to be a delegate there, you're going to want to have enough name recognition in your chapter. You're going to want to have done organizing enough for your chapter to trust you to be a delegate at national. And you're going to have to know how to ask for people to vote for you and have a speech for you at the delegate selection. Those are three things that can be hard to task up with in 5 months.
But now would be a great time because we're right before the midterms.
Exactly. And a lot of people are focused on that stuff, but like where you start building those social skills and building those connections. And honestly, like going to national DSA all these shots, some people just don't want to do it. And like some of our strongest organizers in your chapter just don't want to do it and don't go. So you may have like an easy road to go where like you only have to get in like the top 50% of votes. It happens. I was an alternate to the 2023 convention. I went my old chapter. It was a great time. I don't know if you were even streaming in 20. No, you were. But
I was very tiny.
Very tiny. Yeah. But if you want to be a Shimp at the DSA convention and may actually I would like to actually have a number of Shimps at the National DSA convention that resembles a pseudo caucus of sorts, because that would be really funny if we have more delegates at the National DSA convention than some caucuses that are considered contenders.
And to be very clear, we have almost 100 people from this community who've signed up to be in DSA.
Yep, I'm actually digging out the signal count right now. 70 members. I think I have like 1 or 2 invites to catch up on, which if anyone's DM me about DSA and I haven't gotten back to you today, like I said, I've been busy all day.
and for those of you who are wondering what we're talking about, the people who have signed up for DSA because of this show also can join an informal signal chat to talk with other folks who have joined up with DSA and talk organizing strategy, all that jazz, get advice, chill, hang out, share memes, whatever. So you're more than welcome to join up. You just have to reach out to Christina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also we've been meeting formally once a month, usually at the last weekend or second to last weekend of the month. We're meeting Sunday virtually, of course, at 6 Central Time. Get in the single chat and put your item on the agenda. You can give updates about your chapter or ask questions, and I'll be facilitating the meeting. Just for context, we're not a official caucus because we would need points of unity or anything. I call us a pseudo caucus because it's funnier to call us a caucus even though we're
not. People also want to 3 people have said that they think your hair looks great.
Oh my god, thank you. Thank you.
There's also a question here from My Life is a Dumpster Fire, how to go about building or getting momentum with DSA in a red state. I feel like that's a great question.
So I used to live in a red state. You're going to be running into a couple very specific obstacles, specifically preemption. As much as it would be cool to get your own like DSA mayor in a red state, I learned this lesson when I lived in Indiana. Red states, and this actually started badly. Like the trend started really badly in Indiana. So I am familiar with this mode of operating. If you get a DSA mayor in your state and it's a red state, that state house is going to preempt that mayor from doing anything good. That is the organizing principles of red states. They crack down on anything good a city tries to do. That said, there are ways to work around this. That means you need to get power in your state legislator. That is harder because flipping a city council seat is a lot easier than flipping a state house seat. Also, I can imagine the Democrat caucus you're going to be working with is going to be more conservative. Who knows? It could be better, just not as many members because of gerrymandering. I've seen... let's put it this way: Indiana Democrats are like Minnesota Republicans, like really bad.
Yeah.
Like Indiana Democrats are like really bad. I will say, having seen ran an election and wanting to see what organizing is like, you're gonna want someone in office in the state legislature who's a DSAer to be very willing and patient with people. You're going to be organizing with people you disagree with. Even if you're in like a blue city in a blue state, when you come in as your first DSA candidate, you could be in the ideological minority, and you got to learn where you can work with people. Mm-hmm. That's another thing about relationship building, is you want to be able to work with people where you agree on. I organize with a lot of people who I may have fundamental disagreements on, or on like ideology, philosophy, opinions on so-and-so topic. We work together well because we organize on the greater picture, especially on things we both want to tackle. Another one of our co-chairs is like an anarchist. Like, they do disagree with me on some fundamental principles of things, I'm sure, but we like are really good buddies and everything. Like, we are really good at we're really good at working together, and we really do respect each other's work a lot. Even like in terms of maybe ideological disagreements, we can kind of just bury that and like, there's like, it's like these aren't fundamental disagreements that I have. Like, it's more like, here's the level of like ideal society that we want to get to, and like here's where we're operating on them. Where can we agree and get forward? Like this is how like bipartisan legislation historically works. You're just doing a bipartisan with the DSA progressive side and the Democrat side, like the conservative side, in a blue state. In a red state, you're gonna have to find a work with Republicans. Funny enough, saying that your state house representative or your city councilor can be bought off with such little money, they can also be swayed with a good conversation with someone who just butters them up and tells them they're a good boy.
That is like, very true.
You may get Republicans to vote for things that you like. And that is because, how do I put it? There are an arguably large amount of Republicans in your state legislature who hate Trump and hate their voters. They don't say it because Trump will throw a primary at them if they go against him. Inside baseball, heard a conversation from the counselor who I helped win elections say he had just been at an event where like he saw, or maybe it was someone who was telling it secondhand from some stories from told him, but state senator comes out of a conversation, giving a speech and talking about how like MAGA and Trump and all that, comes back and goes, I hate Trump. I hate that fucking guy. He sucks. And then my kind of like, you just said you loved him. Like these people are like Republicans. Like they're seriously scum of the earth when it comes to that. But when you're doing the state legislative stuff that Trump is too soup for brain to give a shit about, and doesn't see it go through his true social feed, it's where you can maneuver to do some good change.
Yeah, because there is a lot more flexibility among Republicans on the local level. Like on the national level, a lot of Republicans are fully entrenched. They know that they're under a microscope, and if they say anything, do anything wrong, they're gonna feel some wrath. But on the local level, like city council position, or like, you know, a mayor, or even like a state representative, you can get a lot more flexibility. And I think that a lot of it is also oriented around kind of like in Wisconsin. We have a DSA candidate running for governor in Wisconsin who has a real shot of winning.
Francesca Horn.
Yeah, love her. But
we had members, Twin Cities DSA members, go out to Wisconsin to door knock for I think a week ago.
Hell yeah, love it. But a lot of that is born out of, you know, prolonged and consistent organizing under Wisconsin as a red state. You know, it built the framework and built the foundation to run someone like Francesca, and like it's great. So, you know, you can think of it as a losing battle in the short term, maybe if you're really down on it, but you can also think of it as a long-term investment in the success of the DSA project.
Yeah, and to tell another story that I popped into my head about local politicians being way more movable than you may imagine. So the city I lived in, like, it was gerrymandered to be supermajority Democrat. Obviously, one of the biggest city in the state at the time. We had a DSA candidate. He didn't like make it publicly, like, because we weren't good with social media at the time or anything. But we endorsed him and not endorsed for him and everything. He didn't win, but he talked with the Republican who beat him, and I recall him saying stuff like, yeah, he's like all for bike lanes and like wanting to support our immigrant businesses and immigrant communities. I'm like, bro, why are you a Republican? Like, it is like, and then like at the same time, like another Republican was just like, in like, these are like districts that weren't different. Like the other Republican was just like, I hate trans people. I hate all these degenerates. It's like, you'd be surprised where you can work with politicians, and also like, politics are always more interesting the more local it gets, because you see some like, let's see some ridiculous things or hear some crazy things. It's almost like seeing a sideshow some days. Your local politics. You definitely want to know like who's your local news people to follow, like who's like even like the local mainstream newspapers are often a good way to start, even though a lot of them are like more conservative, corporate owned. Still like, especially if there's like citizen beat journalists who cover local stuff. Bloggers often are good at that. But you don't want to be covering someone. You never want to be following someone covering national news for your local area, unless they're like at like a cell of the national outlet for your city.
Yeah. Superjet Guy also wants to know, what titles do you currently hold in Twin Cities DSA?
Queer Liberation Working Group co-chair. Been there and I was Socialist and Office Committee co-chair in 2025, and then just ended up going to Queer Liberation Working Group co-chair because there was an open spot and felt like I needed a leadership position. I'm still involved in the Socialist and Office stuff. I've had many conversations with elected officials. Met with people you've shared content from, Jack. So.
Also, we got some folks wondering. I'm not entirely sure what this means. Rusty wants to ask, question, how should people target their donation?
I guess it gives me a couple questions. If Rusty means membership, like DSA membership, your chapter gets a dues cut from nationals, like the dues you pay through dsausa.org/join. That's in the ! DSA command. I share that like 30% of that goes to your local chapter if your chapter has dues shares connections set up with their local bank account, which any chapter of small, moderate to large size has their own bank account. I would suggest giving, like, we have a thing called the 1% for the 99%. They're called solidarity dues. You can put like how much money you make per hour or per year, and it'll calculate how much dues is like 1% of your income that you can pay monthly to DSA, and like that's 1% for the 99% to do socialism. Like that's always a good method. I think there's like you can do 1%, 2%, or 3% to DSA. I've done 1% before I ended up transitioning and having to change emails, and at that time, DSA's only method of changing membership status was canceling your membership and signing up under a new email. But they fixed that like a couple years ago. So you can change your email if you want to. And you can always sign up with your chosen name if you want to. If you are trans or queer or just want a different name, you just fill out in the personal info what you want to be called, and the billing info is just what's on your card. And if you're getting dead named in emails and you want your name updated in like DSA emails, there's a let's post the link in YouTube chat.
Yeah.
I've had to share this a couple times with trans people because I ran into their dead names on it, and they've been forever grateful of it. It says changing mailing address, but as long as you're using the email you signed up for dues with, you can overwrite all the rest of the information. Just use the same email address you signed up with. And there's a link at the top that says if you want to change your email address, there's another form you can use. So if you signed up thinking you had to sign up your member name as your legal name, you don't have to if you haven't changed it. So
that's awesome. Well, you have been very generous with your time. We've gone over. We're almost at an hour and a half. But I do want to give you the last word. Just whatever you would like to say about DSA.
Yeah. Couple of things I like to always give like a pitch for. Like, seriously, like when I came to DSA, I was a college student who had no formation of political organizing. I watched YouTubers and had opinions and ideas. I stuttered through my speech and introductions. I kept showing up because I kept believing that things could be better. Things didn't feel like they changed much for a while. We met at a rundown Union Hall building. Posters on the wall were there for like 30 years. There was probably mold in the walls at some point. Like half the chairs were missing the seats because they were busted. There was no heat. There was no AC. I suffered through going through those meetings because I believed there was a better tomorrow. And it was just something to give myself an idea of like, I want to do something and make a difference in the world. Your meeting space is not going to be that trashy. But for the first couple years, it felt like nothing was getting accomplished. Like you feel like you're just pushing up, doing nothing for no reason. Eventually, you start having conversations and coming up with ideas and knowing who to talk to, doing the trainings from DSA National, dsausa.org/training, schedule a training with your chapter. Talk with your chapter leaders about getting these scheduled. You'll be having those conversations and slowly they'll start playing out in things like, what if we run this campaign? What if we run this person from office? How do we do that? How can DSA National train us on getting able to do that? You'll start to see wins. It's like the old Nelson Mandela quote. Everything feels impossible until it is done. And that's like really like the mode of organizing that I've often feeling like I'm in. Like there's like, you're going to feel like nothing gets accomplished for a while at meetings and stuff, but eventually you do get those wins and you're able to be like, hey, I did that. And eventually if you're socially anxious, you'll start giving your opinion more at meetings. You'll realize it's easier to talk to people and develop riz and talk to people, and that social anxiety will break down over time and you'll become more friendly with people. You'll meet your comrades and go out to social events, hang out and like get pizza or go to chapter picnic or whatever. The social and socialism. The important thing is to never give up. I took a short break from DSA when I got laid off my job in COVID and was trying to worry about the state of the world at the time. I didn't cancel my dues because I still believed in the movement. That's why I've paid dues for 8 years straight, even when I was really broke. Because as long as you have that sense of hope and that it's never so over, there's a way to find that road to a better tomorrow. A better world is possible, but we have to make it a better world. And I really appreciate what you're doing, Jack, preaching DSA. I've not found a community that's been so willing and understanding, much less a streamer who'd care more about the world than their own viewers. So Shim's meeting is Sunday at 6:00, but you have to be a DSA member and get in the Signal chat. So reach out to me on DSA after joining DSA. My username is Gamergy, and I know you got a show to do, Jack, and I'll pop in chat. Thank you, everyone. And if anyone wants to know where my flag is, I got it custom made from a graphic I found on Reddit. So they don't sell it anywhere. It's one of a kind.
Hell
anyway,
yeah.
If anyone has any questions, I may not be quick to respond lately with how busy I am, but I will respond and I'll get to you about DSA or questions. And I'll see you all on the Sunday meeting.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I know you're busy like nonstop, so I very much appreciate you making time to talk tonight.
If you ever like want to have another chat, just give me a heads up, like a couple weeks, and I can schedule something. Always feel free to give you time, Jack. I wouldn't give it to any other streamer. So,
well, thank you.
I mean, Vosh offered to have me on a show, and I ended up not going on because something came up, and I just realized it wasn't worth it.
Well, thank you so much for making time for us, and appreciate you. Stay safe, stay strong.
Stay safe, Jack. And I know you've been going through a lot too, so take care.
It's true. Thank you so much. Talk to you probably in chat shortly.
Heck yeah.
Thank you so
Solidarity.
much. Hell yeah. There we go. What a lovely conversation, folks. I hope that demystified DSA for a lot of you guys, because it is, I think it can be really scary. There are a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation going around right now, especially around DSA. And I think that conversation shed a lot of light on what it actually means to be part of DSA, what DSA actually does, what DSA has been doing to become one of the most influential socialist organizations to ever exist in the United States. So, folks, show that solidarity. Join your local Dems, join your local DSA in particular, and build that local political power, because we are building it for a reason. We are building it to make the world a better place, but not just the world in the abstract, not just the country in the abstract, but building that political power so you can use it on a local level to make your neighborhood, your town, your city, your state better. You know, we had someone in chat just the other day talking about how America was the best country that ever was or will be, but completely rejected the idea of ever making any kind of improvement to it whatsoever. And I think that that's truly the death of imagination. That's the death of, ambition. And that's the death of, what it means to be a human being. Always seek to better yourself, your community, your neighborhood, all that jazz. And one of the best vehicles to do that is DSA. So, folks, get involved. If you need help, join our Discord, reach out to Gamergy, reach out for help with DSA in particular, and reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems, because, folks, together, when we organize like that, we're basically unstoppable. It's why the mainstream media is high-key terrified of socialists getting elected or democratic socialists being elected. So I really appreciate a longtime organizer within DSA coming on to answer questions and talk about the organization. And I do hope you will take the opportunity to get involved. And if you do get involved, join the DSA Shimp Caucus, the informal DSA Shimp Caucus, by reaching out to Dragonfly, Gamergy, Dragonfly. That is not DSA. As far as I know. Wait, Dragonfly, have you joined DSA? We gotta get you in DSA too. Anyway, all that being said, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Yes, you are in DSA? Alright, cool. Hell yeah. And leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this conversation in the comments. And last but not least, check out ImagineOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks, trans men. It is comfortable, sexy, and non-tucking lingerie. Go check it out. Dragon G. There we go. Nailed it. But we just got a full restock for Imagine Olivia. Got 2 new sizes. Got a new color. Go check it out. ImagineOlivia.com. And let's keep on going. Oh, and there's a link down in the doobly doo. There you go. Fucking up the outro.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and switching streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, being plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.